Michael Chen stood in his empty classroom, erasing the chalkboard as the autumn sun cast long shadows through the windows. At 32, he'd been teaching 5th grade for 7 years, barely making ends meet on a teacher's salary. But money had never been why he taught. He heard it then, a small, muffled sob coming from the hallway. In the corridor, a little girl sat against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7, with light brown hair pulled into a ponytail. Her pink dress was neat, but her face was streaked with tears. Michael knelt down slowly. "Hey there, are you okay?" The girl looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "I can't find my daddy." "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma. Emma, that's a beautiful name." "I'm Mr. Chen. Let's find your daddy together, all right?" He checked the front office, the cafeteria, even the parking lot. No one. Emma's small hand gripped his tightly as they searched. Finally, Michael called the number listed in the school directory. No answer. "Emma, do you know where your daddy works?" She shook her head. "He's always busy. Mama used to pick me up, but—" Her voice trailed off and fresh tears came. Michael's heart clenched. He understood loss. "How about we wait in my classroom? I have some books and maybe we can draw pictures." As evening approached, Michael shared his modest dinner, a sandwich he'd brought from home. Emma ate quietly, then asked, "Do you have kids, Mr. Chen?" "No, not yet. But I have students, and that makes me pretty lucky." "You're nice. Not like the other teachers who just call the office." They were reading a storybook when hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway. A man in an expensive dark suit burst through the door, his face a mixture of panic and relief. "Emma! Daddy!" The little girl ran to him and he swept her up, holding her close. "I'm so sorry, baby. The meeting ran late and my phone died and—" He stopped, noticing Michael for the first time. "You stayed with her?" "Of course," Michael said simply. "I couldn't leave her alone." The man set Emma down gently and extended his hand. "James Hartford. I can't thank you enough. How much do I owe you?" "Nothing." "I'm just glad she's safe." James studied him. "You're a teacher here?" "Yes, 5th grade." "And you stayed after hours, unpaid, to care for a child you didn't even know?" Michael shrugged. "It's what anyone should do." James was quiet for a moment. "No, it's what good people do. What's your name?" "Michael Chen." "Mr. Chen, you've given me something precious today. Time with my daughter is something I've lost too much of." His voice cracked slightly. "My wife passed away 8 months ago, cancer. I threw myself into work thinking I could outrun the grief. But I've been failing Emma in the process." Michael saw the pain in the man's eyes, the same pain he'd seen in his own mirror after losing his mother. "I'm sorry for your loss, but Emma knows you love her. That's what matters, does she?" James looked at his daughter, who was examining the drawings on Michael's desk. "I've missed so many school events, so many dinners. I almost missed picking her up today." "You're here now," Michael said gently. "That's where healing starts." James nodded slowly, then pulled out his wallet. "Please let me, no payment necessary, really. Then let me ask you something. What do you make as a teacher?" Michael hesitated. "About 40,000 a year. And you're content with that?" "I'm content with the impact I make. Money doesn't measure everything." James was silent, watching Emma show Michael a drawing she'd made, a picture of a teacher and a little girl holding hands. "She drew you?" he said softly. Over the next week, Michael noticed Emma in the hallways more often. She'd wave, and sometimes James would be there too, actually walking her to class instead of rushing off. They'd talk briefly, about Emma's progress, about books, about life. One Friday, James appeared at Michael's classroom door after school. "Do you have a moment?" "Of course. I've been thinking about what you said. About being present. I've cut back my hours at work. Started having breakfast with Emma every morning. Reading to her at night." He paused. You helped me see what I was losing. I'm glad to hear that, James. I run Hartford Industries. We manufacture educational technology. I've built a company worth $200 million, but I was bankrupting my relationship with my daughter. He looked directly at Michael. I want to offer you a position. Director of Educational Development. You'd help design programs that actually serve children. The salary would be $200,000 to start. Michael felt the air leave his lungs. That kind of money could change everything. Pay off his student loans, help his aging father, give him security he'd never known. But he looked around his classroom at the hand-drawn posters, the worn books, the tiny desks. James, I'm honored, truly. But this is where I belong. These kids need teachers who'll stay after school, who'll see them as more than just faces in a crowd. If I leave, who'll do that? We could hire 3 teachers with what we'd pay you. But they wouldn't be me. And the kids I teach wouldn't have someone who chose them over money. That matters, James. Maybe not in ways we can measure, but it matters. James studied him for a long moment. You're remarkable, you know that? My wife would have liked you. She believed people mattered more than profit, too. She sounds like she was wise. She was. James pulled an envelope from his jacket. Then let me do this. It's a donation to your school. $200,000 for supplies, books, updated equipment. Not for you personally, but for the work you do. And there's more where that came from if you need it. Michael's hands trembled as he took the envelope. James, this is too much. No. What you did for Emma for me, that's too much to repay. But I'm going to try. And I'm going to be the father my daughter deserves. The father my wife believed I could be. They shook hands. And Michael saw something in James's eyes that hadn't been there before. Hope. Months later, on a spring morning, Michael received an invitation to Emma's birthday party. He arrived at an elegant home to find a celebration full of laughter. Emma ran to him immediately. Mr. Chen, look, Daddy and I made the cake together. James approached, smiling. She insisted on chocolate. We made a mess of the kitchen, but it was perfect. You're baking now? And coaching her soccer team. And reading every night. I even turned down a merger deal because it would have meant missing her school play. He laughed. My board thinks I've lost my mind. And what do you think? James looked at his daughter, radiant and giggling with friends. I think I've found it again. Thanks to a teacher who understood that some lessons can't be taught in boardrooms. As Michael watched Emma blow out her candles, surrounded by love and light, he knew he'd made the right choice. Wealth could be measured in many ways, and he was richer than he'd ever been, because in that moment, in that classroom, he'd given something priceless: time, compassion, and presence. And that had changed 2 lives forever. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest transformations, not because they're grand, but because they're real. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about a time when someone's small act of kindness made a big difference in your life. Your stories inspire us to keep sharing these meaningful tales.